Well, welcome everybody to the end of the first day of this year's summit. So we're really excited that you guys have joined us today. For those who are watching this live, or you're watching the recording as it shows up in different groups, we hope that you are, enjoying yourself with us during this time process. My name is James McLam, and I'm a part of the Igniting the Next Generation Summit. We've got some of our presenters from the day, our co-host Jeff, and we're going to let everybody, if you guys don't mind, just go around and introduce yourselves. Anybody can jump in there forward.
I'm Trish Wilkinson, Brain Stages Education and Parenting, and this has been so much fun because it's so fun to be online with like-minded people and people who just want to empower the next generation. And just this has been really fun for me, just getting to know the all of these really cool people.
Go ahead, Dora.
Hi everyone, I'm Dora Kermay and I'm a performance coach based in New York. And I'm very excited to be here. And likewise, how Trish was saying, I like to um, meet with like-minded people and use empowerment, such a great topic. And we can learn from each other. And I'm very excited to be here. And my topic was about stress management, which is very important. And it was for parents, teachers, and coaches. And yeah, I'm thrilled to be here.
Awesome.
And
I'm
I,
Jeff Hagee. Sorry, James, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say my topic with James McLam, my topic today was really providing parents with tips on how to help their teenager navigate social media. If you follow me, if anything over the last year and a half, you know that has been something I've been preaching on quite a bit, is the dangers and pitfalls that youth can encounter with that, having kids both coming into teenagers and leaving that stage. I have seen it, and I wanted to share a little bit more about that now. So, Jeff?
Awesome. I'm Jeff Hagee. I'm one of the co-hosts with James and Tammy. And you know what? This is our third one. And after watching everyone today, this is going to be as good or better than any of them. It was an awesome day, presentations, and I'm just looking forward to the rest of the week. So why
Yeah.
don't we jump into it? Um, there were some great things today. I really loved it. And James, let's start with you. You've talked a lot about this stuff, and you shared some things today. I guess before we get into that, we did have a number of people who just joined the summit today, and so anyone that's watching this on live on any of the social media right now, you can still access it because day one is accessible for 48 hours. So go to ignitenextgen.com. You can still sign up, get day one, plus there's more amazing days coming. So let's get right into yours, James. You gave some really practical, straightforward advice on how to handle the youth with their social media. Do you want to just kind of talk about that?
Well, one of the things that have come out in the last 6 months is a lot more research on the tie between mental anxiety, depression, mental health issues that youth are experiencing, and the rise of social media. That there is no longer just a correlation, but there's a direct causation from the rise of social media and the rise of a smartphone and the problems that we're seeing in youth. That we start to see around 2012 a significant increase in reported issues from youth themselves, not just their parents saying it, not just professionals saying it, but youth themselves self-reporting. And what happened in 2012? Well, guess what happened in 2012? Well, Instagram happened. And it was the advent, and I'm holding up a phone here. It's the advent of the rear-facing camera on our smartphones. So now they could take pictures while looking at themselves, and it became so much more of being involved on it. Not just as much as the old Facebook, and even before that, MySpace, which was more about finding people and connecting with them. Now it became an image thing. And so that has caused them to spend more time on it. And we've seen since then things like TikTok, Snapchat, and a host of others. And so that's really decreased it. So I felt like there should be some tips, and a lot of research, a lot of books, a lot of writing has come out of this lately. Most of this content that I gave today is not original. It's just a culmination of everybody. And a couple of the tips that I'll hit off, because two of the ones that are most controversial for parents at least, and the ones I get the most pushback on, is number one, delaying the giving of smartphones to your child until they are at least in high school. Put that off as long as possible. And if they do have to have some kind of device, let them use just a simple phone, something that just texts and calls. Those things still exist.
You know what? I know exactly what you're talking about when I work with parents, because I've done a lot of parent coaching, and they'll say, yeah, but I just give my kids, we just give our kids our old phones and then we get new phones. So we'd have to buy additional new phones to do that. And I say, well, here's the thing. Teachers have noticed that when smartphones came out with the cameras and all of that stuff, that's when they noticed a lot of changes in education. Kids having a harder time learning and socialization and the whole thing with social media and just all of it, right? So it's not that smartphones are bad. I love that you were saying, look, and I haven't even seen a phone. You don't happen to have one of those on you, do you?
Those older phones?
An
flip
older
phones
phone, a flip phone. Is that what you got them? You got them flip phones? Because I remember, years ago I had a flip phone when, those were the thing. But, I'm probably a little older than you are.
Well, one of the things that has come out now is there are a lot of companies that are concerned about this, that are producing phones specifically for this age group that do not have access to internet. Because what you're doing when you give them a smartphone, you're not just giving them something connect to you, text and call you. You're giving them 24/7 access to the world, and you're giving the world 24/7 access to them, which should scare the bejesus out of you.
Yeah.
That's about as profanity as we're going to get is they're going to say bejesus on this thing. So delay it. The second thing that I suggest, and I get pushback from this, is delaying their access to having accounts on social media till they're at least 16. If you can wait until they graduate, you're even better, but at least 16, because mentally they're not able to handle all this. They're not developed well enough to handle all this. And so those are two.
Can I say something about that too? Because
yes.
I loved when you said that in your talk. And so my kids started earlier than that because they were younger, and we didn't know what we didn't know because it was new, right? So my kids had accounts earlier than that. And my older daughter was really into MySpace and that kind of thing. And, and then just as the other platforms were rolling out, she was rolling right along with them. And what happened was we were able to limit how much she was going to do the stuff on her phone. And it actually helped her a lot because it turned out she was getting pressure from her friends. You didn't answer my Instagram. You didn't answer my Facebook post. You didn't answer my fill in the blank. And you didn't respond to that. And they would get upset with her. And she'd say, you know what, my parents only allow me, a certain amount of time or whatever a day, and I have to do whatever I can do in that time. And if I argue with them, they'll just take away my phone. So you can I can respond whenever I can respond, and you can be okay with that, or I won't be able to do it at all. So, what's that going to be? And she was just very firm with them. Like, look, I love you guys. I'm happy to respond, but I only have between this time and this time to do that. So that's when I'll do it. And, that's going to have to be okay. So I love, because sometimes, and we used to tell her all the time, look, blame us. Just blame me. Oh, my mean old mom, my mean old dad. They won't let me do this or whatever, because it took so much pressure off of her to just be able to say, look, I don't get it at all unless I follow these rules. So,
I think that falls in line with what James was saying too, making sure they understand what the guidelines are, consequences, and if they understand and agree with them, I think that makes it easier for them.
Exactly. Well, when kids know what the boundaries are, just like the fence, there's a story of the fence where, before there was no fence around this playground at a school, so they always stayed really. They always stayed. Sorry, my husband keeps calling me. But the kids always stayed really close to the building because there was a busy street and they didn't have a fence. And once they put the fence in around the school, then they could play all over the playground. They had so much more space. And it's the same kind of, it's the same kind of thing. Okay, here's your boundaries. And now you have all this space to be able to, function within these boundaries. So it's actually a gift. So I loved how you were saying, look, set up some parameters, set up a contract, have them sign it. Once they're really clear and you're really clear and you're consistent with it, it just makes life easier for them, not just for the parents, right? So bravo.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Anything else you want to add on to yours, James?
Well, there are 5 tips there, and the other 3 are limiting their time. Studies are showing they're spending about 7 hours a day on social media. That's scary.
Yeah, yikes.
To limit their time on that if possible, and to have a contract with them as well on those. So those are some of the highlights of it. I encourage folks to go in and look at it. Again, it's not anything that's necessarily original. It's just a culmination of a lot of ideas from a lot of things that I've seen work and I've seen practical. And I don't think we can stress this enough, that we're putting something very dangerous in them. A friend of mine wrote a book about social media and called it The Wolf in Your Pocket. And he's in essence saying you got a predator in your pocket with social media and you need to learn how to control it. So,
and it's great stuff. And especially, I mean, those that are dealing with it now, but if you've got young kids, listen to James's presentation so you can get ahead of it and do the right things, because we're talking about 2012. That's when Instagram came out. We talk about when the camera on the phone came out. We're talking about all these things, and it's not going to be long that we're talking about 2024 that AI came out and all those different things, and how it's here to stay and it's going to be impacting us. So I think being proactive is really an important thing to take into consideration.
Well, and the things he suggests are so simple and doable. A lot of times I feel like parents are overwhelmed because there's so much going on all the time and they're on their own phones. I mean, I loved he had this clip that went in that it showed both the mom and the dad on one side and the other on the couch, and she's trying to get their attention. They're both on their devices. I mean, it works both ways, right? But you just give it such a simple how-to, like, look, this is how you do this, and it'll just make it so much better for you and your kids. So
yeah.
Anyway, I just really appreciate it. I definitely highly recommend it.
Yeah, practical
and James
are really good. And I also really like that how just having an agreement and clear expectations and setting up norms even at home. Kind of.
Yeah.
It's very important, very simple, but also following those can make a huge difference for everyone.
Well, and
our oldest is 24 years old,
right?
and we didn't have this in place when she was coming along because we didn't know. But now our youngest is 13, and we do know. So there's a lot. She's like, "Why do I have that? My sister didn't have it.
Didn't have to." Yeah.
Well, yeah. Exactly. We didn't know.
Because hopefully we learn, right? Yeah, no, we had some of those complaints in our house too.
James, also just commend you. Well done on the editing. It really added to your message. So that was nice.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Trish, prepare, purpose, and process. Let's talk about your presentation. It was outstanding.
I'm glad you liked it. I am on a mission. I will tell you what, I am on a mission to find other people and restore the joy in education, because I was an educator for years and years. Now I work more with adults than I do with kids, but I just feel like education should be full of joy. You know, we're learning new things and discovering new things. It should be fun and exciting, and all the things we're hearing in schools with the, you know, greater anxiety and depression, partly from the social media stuff that James was talking about, right? But prepare, purpose, and process is just using a few practices in the classroom or at home or wherever you are, whatever your role is with kids or with your scouting group, whatever your role is with kids. If you use prepare, purpose, and process for how kids' brains develop, function, and learn, it's just so much fun. I mean, because not only are they happier and healthier and they're developing better socially and all, but they're learning more, they're excited. I mean, it's just a complete, but doesn't it make sense before you're going to do something to prepare your brain to be able to do it? We just didn't know as much about brain development as we do now. So with and I kind of discovered this stuff by accident. I talk about that in my talk where my own kids had issues. And then I had this crazy class and I started plugging in a lot of the stuff that I was doing with my neurodivergent children. They both had attention issues, but I don't think they were disordered or any of those things. They're very successful in their young adult lives now and their professions and everything. Their brains just work a little differently. But the bottom line is all of our brains do better when we prepare for whatever we're going to be doing. And that's, you know, and then giving purpose to learning. Doesn't it make sense that we're going to do a lot better when we have a reason to do it? Well, and it makes it so we learn things in context, right? So if we have a purpose for learning, if kids know why they're doing, what they're learning, and that works at home too. When you just say, because I said so, that just makes them mad. Whereas if they say, why do I have to do this? And you give them a reason, or you even say, well, what do you think? You know, what do you think? Why do you think you would need to do this? A lot of times they'll come up with it on their own and then they're done, they're ready to go. So, and then process, once they learn something, giving them a chance to think about and talk about what they learned, it gives it sticking power because then all that learning is in context. So it's, you know, the difference between learning something in context and learning something that's just hanging out there somewhere. And they'll say a lot of times, oh, you have to learn something or practice something 12 times until you understand it. It really cuts it way down in my experience if they learn it in context, if they learn it with prepare, purpose, and process.
Wow.
So
that could be applied in so many different ways.
What? I missed that.
I said that can be applied in so many different avenues, so many different ways of life, not just education, but I'm thinking about, you know, teaching a skill, a sports skill, it's any kind of skill.
Yeah. Any kind of skill. Social and emotional learning skills. Like, you know, my kids needed a little help with that because when kids have attention issues, they tend to mature a little slower. So when we would prepare their brains before they went somewhere, we'd have them get a little exercise, get a drink of water, make sure they had enough sleep. You know, you can't do that in school. Make sure they get enough sleep. But you get the idea. If their brains are prepared before they do something, then they have a much easier time doing it. But a kid who's neurodivergent, and most kids anyway, if they're overtired or, you know, a lot of times they'll come home from school and they'll be like, I have a stomach ache or a headache. They usually just need a drink of water because that's one of the signs of dehydration. But, you know, we don't necessarily think about it and they don't necessarily drink water. They're drinking other things that don't necessarily hydrate them. So a lot of these things are really simple, just like what you're talking about with the social media. They're simple things to do, but they make a huge difference.
You know, and going back, anyone that's joining any of these lives on any of the different social media right now, one, I hope you're over 16 and you're everything we talked about in James's, but
or you're sitting with your parents watching this.
Yes, you're with your parents.
There you go.
All of day one is still available. So go to ignitenextgen.com. You can still get it if you've missed it. It's available for 48 hours. So make sure you go and sign up for that. So thank you, Trish. Dora, stress. Let's talk stress. But you know what, Dora, you've got a cool story. First, share a little bit of your background.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. So my background is I'm was born in Budapest, Hungary, and my background is in table tennis. So I played for the Hungarian national team for 6 years, and also was top 10 in the US. And so it's a big part of my life. Table tennis, I would say it's a huge part of my life. But besides that, I have background in psychology and sports psychology. I have 2 master's degrees, and I also publish books on stress management, actually on mental toughness. So I'm very passionate about this topic, and personally, I experienced it as a student athlete. So so I can relate. I can really relate to this topic, and it's stress is part of our everyday life, and basically teenagers, student athletes always have experiencing high level of stress, and it's really hard to manage school and sports at the same time, and also handle demands, right? So so yes, so I'm really passionate about this topic, and I have my personal experience as well regarding that, and I'm also doing coaching as well. So I actually I can relate to coaching as well. So, and I have a niece and a nephew as well. So who are playing sports as well. So there are many experiences that I could leverage and bring it to the presentation. And I try to basically have a complex view about stress management, and I use different resources, and and I also like to keep it simple, how James and Trish was saying. So I was giving really basic tips, but I would say that what's the most important in generally in life as well, and sports and work, and as a parent as well as a coach as well, is awareness. So I explained the different kind of stress, and also was giving different kind of very basic tips for parents, coaches, and teachers.
Thank you. You know what, and I think something important that you talked about, not all stress is bad. You want to talk about that a little bit on the different kinds of stress?
Jeff, you read
Sure.
my mind. That's exactly what I was going to say. Because that was the quote that I wrote down where it says even positive change can lead to stress. And I was like, whoa, that's like hit me in the face. I was
Yeah,
like,
so
oh,
we
where?
need stress, because otherwise a little stress. So stress is not always bad, and stress can give motivation. So for example, preparing for an exam, so when somebody is a little bit nervous about it, they will be motivated and they want to achieve the goal, right? So to do well for an exam or also a competition. So it helps with the preparation, and also in the moment when it's trained well. Also stress is good in a way, because it gives you alert. So actually there is facilitative and debilitative anxiety. So facilitative means that put like that's positive anxiety or stress when it helps you to perform under pressure. And I'm sure everyone experienced that when you're not nervous, or you're like, okay, I'm just going to do a competition, or there is an exam. When the students are not as motivated, they don't do as well. So they can be more sleepy or sluggish, right? So so you need kind of a little stress, which is positive. So it's more about excitement, and when there is negative stress, it's more about joking. So when the athlete freeze, and already starting when they are in the competition, starting thinking about the end result, right, which is not doing well, and worrying about too much about the result. So that's negative stress. And also, I mean, when somebody's too nervous, it's really hard to have the optimal energy. So that's why I'm always saying awareness is very important. That's what I tell always athletes and try to and teaching them, educating them, know where you are at in the dimension. Are you too low or too high? And if you're too high, you can basically pull it back with different techniques such as breathing and visualization and positive self-talk, which is very important, and the parents and coaches can help a lot with that. Yeah.
And
So,
I
yeah.
love how you equate stress and anxiety with also excitement, because stress and anxiety in the brain look the same on an MRI as excitement. So, like, I've worked with a lot of kids and parents and said, you know, so you're really stressed. So what if you look at the good things about that and see if you can shift your mindset to looking at that as excitement? And it sounds like that's a lot of what you're doing too, because you're like, look, stress is a good thing. So, you know, let's use it.
Yes, absolutely.
Instead of getting, you know, all freaked out about it, let's use that energy, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it's kind of like reframing the situations. So putting on different lenses. So I'm also talking about, even in the presentation, the same situation can be interpreted differently with different people. One of them is saying, "Oh, this is so exciting! Yes, I'm ready to do that." And other students might feel like, "Oh, I just don't want to do this. I'm going to underperform." And they are already thinking about, you know, what can go wrong. So everyone can help everyone, the coaches, the parents, everyone can help their athlete that, okay, so let's look at this situation and look at how you can grow through these situations, right? Because also we talked about, like, I really liked also that in also Trish, you were talking about focusing on the process. It's a huge one of my principles, whoever I'm working with, like it's about growth mindset. So let's see what skills you can develop through this, right? So you can also reframe situations, competitions, that developing skills can be a great goal. But excitement, creating excitement, and for the kids that makes them excited. That's very important. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. It was a great presentation. And again, anyone that's just joining the live, ignitenextgen.com, you can still catch it for 48 hours. So please do that. You know what? There is two other that aren't on the call with us. Let's talk about them for a little bit. And anyone that watched them can join in. But let's talk about Sherry Wynn to begin with. So Sherry's a two-time Olympian, national champion basketball coach. She's a really great speaker, and she shared a personal story that I thought was pretty cool, talking about I am statements, those affirmations, and talking about a story of telling ourselves the story of what we can do versus what we can't do. Does anyone want to share anything that they got from Sherry's presentation?
One of the
You know, I've
quotes that
been
I wrote
oh,
down.
go ahead.
I was
Go
going to say,
ahead.
one of the quotes I wrote down from her was, "We define ourselves into things that we cannot do versus the things that we can do." So if you tell yourself a story about what you cannot do, that's a reality that you're going to live now. And I was like, ooh,
Yeah, that's
ooh, ooh,
great.
that's deep.
I
Yeah, that was
that.
profound. Well, and the other thing too that I loved is her talking about I am statements. Us saying I want to do this or that keeps us in the place of wanting it. Whereas if we
Mm.
say I am this and I declare that this is what I'm doing, this is what I am, then that makes all the difference. And she gave such hilarious, really cute, heartfelt, personal stories. I mean, I loved that video, just because, and I could relate to what she was saying. A lot of the time, I mean, I think most of us, especially when we're little, most of us have a hard time, you know, not listening to other people and just staying focused on what we believe I am. But now that, you know, that's such a gift we can give to any of the youth that we're working with in our lives, whether they're our children or students or whatever, is to make I am statements and positive I am statements. And I mean, that was just a really fun, very heartfelt video for me.
Yeah, the personal stories were great, and I love affirmations as well. And yes, it was excellent. Yeah, I loved it.
What's really cool is that no one knew what anyone else was going to present, and yet Dora's and Sherry's just tied in so well together. And when Tammy put together the list of who was going to be on what day, we didn't have the videos yet. So that was amazing that all that kind of tied in together. We just were basing it on availability and, a number of different factors, and this is how it fell. And it's like, oh, it's so cool that when it works out this way.
It was all planned.
Yeah, don't give it away, James. No, I mean, it's amazing how although a lot of the subject matter that people are doing, it's all about, and I loved what I can't think of his name all of a sudden, but he was talking about doors.
Jim Van Allen.
Yes. Dr. Allen?
Yeah, Jim Van Allen. Yeah.
Jim Van Allen.
Jim Van Allen. And he was talking about doors. Some doors are presented to you and you can take the opportunity to walk through them. And sometimes we get scared and we don't. And he's saying, let's encourage our kids to actually walk through those opportunities, actually take opportunities, have fear, do it anyway, right? And also, and if you don't have an opportunity, you don't have a door, you know what? You could make a door. Make a door.
All right, see, Trish, that was the quote that I wrote down.
Yeah.
The quote that I wrote down was, they can open up the door casually. They may have to beat down the door. They may have to run through the door. And if the door won't open, they have to build another one and still get into that room. So that's kind of cool that you were using that. That was the quote I wrote. So.
Yeah, no, that was great. And again, his being a partner with John Gordon and the president of Energy Bus for Schools, I'm not surprised that he was able to use such great stories to get his message across, but it was really great. One of the things I want to do, just for anyone that hasn't been on these presentations yet, hopefully you will be, but all of our presenters also have some amazing things to offer. So let's just go through the three of you and talk about, James, you want to start us off, talk about your book, talk about everything else you have to offer for any of the listeners?
Thank you. Well, the primary program that we do now at Generation Youth is our Youth Life Coaching Certification, which we have a class coming up in 2 weeks. So we're going to be talking a lot more about that going forward. We certify folks who have a desire to impact and positively influence young people, certify them as life coaches, train them on the issues and problems that youth are facing, train them on what coaching is and how they can do that effectively, how they can be a life coach effectively with youth. We go all the way back to the original definition, what the original word coach meant when it's etymology, how it started, and how that meaning really should drive what you are as a youth life coach. As Jeff pointed out, we do have one book that is out currently, with a couple more coming out in 25. It's Tomorrow's Youth, which really talks about the major issues that we have identified that youth struggle with. This is based on interviewing over 2,500 youth in the United States and England. We asked them one question: what's the biggest problem facing your generation? And then we just wrote down what they said or recorded what they said, depending on how the interview is done. Found 3 very common themes. They struggle with self-image, they struggle with relationships, and they struggle with purpose and goals. And we dive into how you can address those issues as well. So that's our primary things that we do. We got some other things that we do as well, but those are the 2 big ones.
Awesome. And if you go to ignitenextgen.com, go to James's profile, all his links are right there as well. Trish, go ahead.
Well, I wrote a book. I should have brought it over.
Where'd she go?
Called Brain Stages: How to Raise Smart, Confident Kids and Have Fun Doing It. And it was actually written because my kids told me I should write this book. And my kids and my husband. Anyway, long story short, I ended up writing this book, and I was writing it with Jacqueline Frischnecht, a PhD who was a college professor at the University of Boulder in Colorado, and she passed away while we were writing the book. So I did. I mean, I was already a science nerd anyway, but I just did a ton more research, and like what you were saying, James, like my older daughter, some of these things we missed because we just didn't know what we didn't know, but the younger daughter, you know, and that was true for us as well, because so much research has come out. That so what I do is I coach educators, and that's with the prepare purpose process. I'm working on actually getting this into schools. Can you imagine an entire school where everybody's doing these processes, where kids are learning in accordance with how their brains develop, function, and learn, because it
Mm.
makes such a huge difference in every way. Not just, I mean, their scores don't just go crazy high, because there's, you know, they just learn so much better, but they get along so much better, and they have that sense of purpose that you were talking about. It's amazing. So I work with schools, I work with educators, and I work with parents, because I'm all about restoring the joy in education and having kids, you know, take agency, not even just taking responsibility, because that sounds like a hard line. I mean, that's part of it, but wanting to take control of their learning, wanting to be involved and excited and curious, and you know, all of those things, to become lifelong learners. So so I coach other people, and I coach teachers and parents and whatever. And I
Awesome.
have digital courses on my website, you know, parenting courses, and then for anybody who works with kids, like for on communication, I have a course on how to raise successful children who have experienced trauma, because you know, a lot of those kids were falling through the cracks for a long time. There are a lot of kids on ADHD medication who are not ADHD. They are products of, you know, what has happened to them since their trauma. And it's a whole different way of, you know, dealing with kids when they've experienced trauma. So if their ADHD medication isn't working, maybe you just don't know what happened to them when they were younger. And there's a whole bunch of really cool, really simple things you can do with them. So that's the kind of stuff I do.
All right. Thank you, Trish. And again, her links are available too on ignitenextgen.com. Dora.
Um, I published 3 books. The first one is Get Your Game Face On. And the second one is Get Your Game Face On Like the Pros. And basically, these 2 books, so the second one is an extended version of the first one. And I'm explaining routines between points. So basically, it's about stress management. So creating positive stress, right? Creating excitement. And athletes can do that, how they use their time between points. I also share my personal experience in these books, and also give a step-by-step process how athletes can build a routine on and off the court, basically, and also give a holistic view. It's very important to train for the competitions, but also just creating healthy lifestyle choices. Actually, how Trish was saying, even before, like nutrition, hydration, sleep, having good relationships, environment, are these all very important besides training. So I'm giving a step-by-step process regarding that. And I also have another book. The latest book is My Stories of Mental Toughness on and Off the Table, where I share 11 of my life stories when I had my challenges, and also how I overcame those challenges, and I give tips after every story. It's also a very easy read, and I recommend these books for athletes, coaches, parents, for everyone. These books are great. And I also offer individual coaching. So for athletes, and also parents and coaches as well. I have my I offer workshops, so it's not just for individuals, but also for coaches, and I create individualized plans basically. Yeah. So so
And
anyone would like to hear about this, I mean, it's available on my website. Yeah, and of course the links for the books are there. Yeah.
you want to also share what you and Tammy have coming up?
Yes, and we are going to have a parent playbook presentation August 20th, on August 20th with Tammy, who is the other co-host. We are very excited to give this presentation about basically giving guidelines for parents and coaches as well. And we are going to help whoever is coming to this workshop. We are going to help you to create a mission statement for yourself as a parent, as a coach, and for your kids and athletes as well. So we are very excited about that. And it's going to be on August 20th. And you can have more information about this. I mean, it's at the end of the presentation, but also it's on yes, on the website as well. Yeah.
Excellent. Is there anything else that anyone wants to share about any of the presentations today? I guess for those that aren't here with Jim Van Allen and Sherry Wynn, again, ignitenextgen.com, you can get all their links. They both have amazing books and programs, so please check them out as well.
So let's go over to tomorrow's lineup before we get off. Tomorrow, day 2, we got 5 more outstanding presentations. Tammy Matheny will be having one. Brittany Richmond, Don Manning, Jeff Forrester, Petra Krebs. You can go to the website and check out all the topics, but we're going to talk about helping find your child's strengths, helping them find purpose, overcoming fear, finding their why, and getting your teenager to listen to you. You're not going to want to miss that tomorrow. You're going to have an exciting time. And we'll be back again tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Any parting comments from anybody before we get off?
I just want to say thanks for inviting me to be a part of this. I'm really enjoying it. It's been really fun meeting the other people. And I feel like there's just so much material that people can use. And I love that you made in a lot of these summits, the videos are like an hour. And if you have 20 speakers, who has 20 hours? Whereas all of these presentations are only like 10, 15 minutes, right? So what's happening is, it's really easy to listen to 5 presentations. It's an hour and 15 minutes instead of 5 hours.
And you got 2 days to do it in, where some others only give you 24 hours.
Right. They only give you 24 hours. And, people are busy. So I love how you've set this up to make it really usable for people who want to empower the next generation, which obviously all of us do, but hopefully lots of parents and coaches and teachers and mental health professionals, whoever stumbles onto this, because they're going to get such great tools and not a lot of time.
Awesome.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you again tomorrow for day 2 of Igniting the Next Generation Empower Summit.
Thank you all.